have been sworn in is Governor Mike Sonko, who was sworn in yesterday. Others to be sworn in today are Dr. Joyce Laboso, incoming Governor Bomet, and Ali Hassan Joho, incoming Governor Mombasa County, and Waigoro of Kirinyaga County will be sworn in today, and we will be going live there as well. The images there on your screen are coming to us from Mombasa County, where Governor Ali Hassan Joho was re-elected as Governor of County number 1, and he will be sworn in later on. I beg your pardon. Let's cross over to Kisumu County now. Laura Achieng is on standby. Laura, good morning to you. What's happening in Kisumu this morning?
Yes, a very good morning to you, Lillian. And after the inauguration of the Governor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o yesterday, there's quite some activities that have been happening. Now, first of all, we received some sad news yesterday evening of the perishing of the late Robert Ouko's wife. She perished yesterday on a grisly road accident along the Kisumu-Kericho highway. Of course, we will be following that up. We will be going to her home just to see what is going on there. Of course, what we know is that Christabel Ouko had attended the inauguration of Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, but then she was involved in a road accident in the evening as she was driving back to her home. But apart from that, here we are at the Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground, where behind me a crowd is slowly gathering. Those are the people that are supposed to hold demonstrations, not demonstrations rather, but a peaceful walk against crying the injustice, what they call the injustice done to baby Samantha Pendo, of course the 6-month-old that sustained head injuries after police brutality that occurred here in Kisumu County. Now, what we know, we were speaking to them earlier, is that as of yesterday evening, all the plans they had underway, they had already prepared to begin their peaceful walk at 9 a.m. But as it stands, we were talking to the chairman there. He told us that they're actually called the Kenya Youth Group, and what is going on is that yesterday evening they received a letter basically to just terminate the peaceful walk. So what we're seeing there is the OCS coming to address them and sort of like talk to them and to explain. They said they need an explanation from the OCS as to why their peaceful walk has been cancelled. As it stands right now, the walk is not supposed to happen because the letter they received suggests that they will not be receiving any police protection as it is required by law. So they're trying basically to the OCS and see the way forward. What we know is that they were supposed to hold a peaceful walk today to outcry the injustice, and then hold light candles tomorrow as a vigil, and just to pay homage to baby Samantha Pendo. So as it stands right now, they're with the OCS there, basically discussing to see the way forward, to see whether they'll still have their walk allowed. And of course, we'll also be going to the home of Christabel Ouko, now the late Christabel Ouko, just to see what is going on there. And that is in a nutshell what is going on in Kisumu County at this time, Lillian. Of course, our eyes and ears on the ground will be updating you on anything that happens in this front, Lillian.
Laura Achieng is coming to us from Kisumu County. And once again, good morning. This is Citizen Extra. My name is Lillian Muli. Our guest in studio this morning, Brian Mutie. He's a governance analyst. Good morning, Brian. Thanks for being with us. Also with us is Mark Bichache, who is a communication strategist. Thanks for being with us, Mark. And Stephen Gekonyo, who is a political strategist, also our guest in studio. We'll be looking at, among stories shaping the day, the transition in several counties as governors are sworn into office, some incumbents, some newcomers. We'll also be looking at the NASA petition. The grounds for the NASA petition, you do remember, are among some the fact that results transmission system was flawed and compromised. They also cited discrepancies in Form 34A. They also talked about inconsistencies in Form 34B. They talked about non-designated polling stations, inconsistent voter turnout, voter bribery, among other issues. We'll be looking at issues surrounding the NASA petition. But before that, once again, just to remind you that the swearing-in ceremonies of among others, Ali Hassan Joho in Mombasa County will be happening today. Also in Kirinyaga County, Anne Waigoro will be sworn in today. And in Bomet County, Dr. Joyce Laboso also being sworn in today. We're also going to be going live to, this being the 22nd day of August, the commemoration of the 39th anniversary of the passing of Kenya's founding father, the first president of the Republic of Kenya, the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. But before that, gentlemen, talking about the swearing-in ceremonies, I'll start with you, Brian. The spotlight has fallen on budgets for inauguration to curb wastage of public funds. The reason I did not start with Stephen with this question is because last time he felt that this was really a non-issue, you know, after Mike Sonko's sentiments, of course, that a chunk of that money should go into unpaid salaries. For you, the spotlight falling on budgets for inauguration, do you see these lavish affairs as being necessary? Do you think this is wastage of public funds?
Yeah, absolutely, Lillian, thank you. It's wasteful. Let me open my remarks by saying it's wasteful. And when you look at the amount involved, for instance, if you look at the issue of Kisumu, 12 million, whooping 12 million, Lillian, that's in money, that's money enough to, you know, make some difference as far as the county is concerned in terms of setting up some social amenities and so on and so on. Look at Kitui, and of course I do laud Charity Ngilu for, you know, saying that I do not need this amount of money for just a simple ceremony. And to me, if you may ask me, I would say that an handover or swearing ceremony should be a simple, precise issue. In fact, if they could come up with a setup where they can only, you know, have the cameras and maybe the judges who are administering the oath and so on and so, just a simple, precise, you know, kind of induction, and that will see the county saving a whooping amount of money, as opposed to this kind of wastage that we are seeing. If you collectively take, for instance, at least 5 million for the 47 counties, we are talking about over 200 million. That's money enough to make a difference in this country, which is still grappling with some financial deficiencies here and there. And therefore, for the governors who, you know, have dismissed those amounts and they're saying that and said this amount need to go to something else, to me it's kudos to them. And but Governor Mutua, to me, was actually on record that he doesn't need that amount. But when you looked at the kind of you know, pomp and color in that kind of ceremony, I think it took more than what he had actually rejected, and therefore some might be a PR issue and others might be genuine. So I'll do laud those who rejected the amount.
And of course, Mark Mwangi Kionjuri, the CS devolution, also said that the amount that any incoming governor chose to use was really up to him or her. But when we look at the fact that several incumbent governors failed to win re-election this year's general election, then you would assume that the newcomers are excited and that therefore they would want a ceremony that is befitting of this being their first tenure.
You know, the question, Lillian, goes beyond the money question, and it goes into the fact of the governor's position is a new thing for the Kenyan people. Now, the question then becomes, do we as a nation respect our leaders because of the pomp and glamour and the chase car and the motorbike, or do we respect them because of the position that they hold? Now, you've seen in Europe prime ministers taking the tube to go to work. You've seen prime ministers cycling to work. The problem is that in Africa, if you get any position, including a promotion from a pastor to senior pastor, the size of your desk increases. This is the problem, that we have this thing where we think that if I take any position, there needs to be pomp and glamour behind it. And that is why governors fought to have security detail, have chase cars, have all these things, so that you feel like you're a small president. That's the first issue. The second issue, even when they're spending money, you know, I'm trying to look at these ceremonies, and I can't see where the 12 million shillings went. Because number one, they're not hiring the grounds. They own the grounds. They're the county government. You understand? A PA system is not 16 million shillings to hire. And then those pieces of fabric that we import from China at 2,000 shillings should not cost that much. The reality of the matter, there can be a balance. There is a legal requirement that they need to be sworn in, but there is also a balance between budget and sobriety. And how you start off a political office is very critical, because you set the tone for how you will run for the next 5 years. So Sonko coming out and saying that I want an affordable and lean inauguration sets the tone that we expect during his governorship, that they will spend money correctly and on the most important things. Because the funniest thing is you have workers who have been unpaid and you're spending 12 million shillings so that people can fight for soda and bread, like they did in one of the counties the other day, in Kisumu County. You know, it's nonsense. And as Kenyans, we really need to grow up. I don't think when you become a father in your house, you don't need to buy a car so that your wife knows you've become a father, because she carried the baby. So you become governor. There's no pump needed.
The pump is not necessary. Stephen, I'll not be forwarding the question on the budget for inauguration to you, because you shared your thoughts last time we were here. Let's zero in on these respective counties. Let's look at, for instance, Kitui and Kisumu, where we have Social Democrats and veterans of the defunct Social Democratic Party. I'm talking about Charity Ngilu in Kitui and Peter Anyang' Nyong'o. Both are politicians that have national stature, and they're now under local and national pressure to deliver. Don't also forget that both also have cabinet level experience. For these two individuals, and you can start with Charity Ngilu, her experience being a veteran politician, does this serve in the interests of the people of Kitui now? Will it be a plus or a minus for her?
I think it will be a plus. Charity Ngilu is a survivor. She's gone through all kinds of hoops and come back again. She recently went through accusations of corruption, which she survived, and went on to become the governor of Kitui. I think it's a great thing. Also, she's going to fill in a vacuum of leadership. We've seen Wiper completely wiped out by virtue of being in NASA or not having a strategy for political gain. I think Charity stands to be a leader. She and Mutua, of course, will be competing for the leadership of Ukambani, but she's someone to watch. I'm sure she's had her lessons to learn, and she knows exactly what to do in the political scene. Therefore, I'm looking forward to seeing how exactly she functions as a governor.
Anyang' Nyong'o.
Peter Anyang' Nyong'o is very interesting. Of course, you saw him come out with sobriety and tell people, do not burn my roads and do not cause chaos in our city. I think that was a sober-minded leader speaking. He has a lot of experience, and we look forward to seeing what he can now do. In the Senate, it's a little different, because you're looking at what governors are doing, perhaps even criticizing. Now you're on the hot seat. And so let's see what you have in terms of vision and in terms of deliverables for the people of Kisumu. There's lots of opportunity there in terms of ramping up that city and providing the economic needs for those people. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Right,
to you, Brian and Mark. Talking about allegations of corruption, the images that we're seeing on our screens right now from Kirinyaga County and what Anne Waiguru has in common with Charity Ngilu is the fact that they were both linked to corruption. Anne Waiguru resigned. Clearly, the incumbents lost in these counties has in no way affected persons such as Charity Ngilu's candidature or bid for the gubernatorial position, irrespective of the fact that both were linked to corruption. Brian, let's start with you.
I think the issues of corruption, you know, is a tag that leaders normally carry at national level. But when it comes to grassroots Lilian, it fades away completely. And I will tell you that for Kirinyagas and also Ukambani at large, those who voted for Waiguru and also those who voted for Ngilu, the message they were sending is that even if they are being alleged to have, you know, misused some funds, they are our daughters. They are, you know, they belong to us. And even if they are thieves, they are our thieves. So that should that sounded like the message they were passing on. And therefore, it doesn't matter much at the grassroots whether somebody was actually, you know, involved in any money issues or not. The most important thing is how he endears himself to, you know, Lilian, we have to understand that voters in Kenya are there for, you know, for sale, and whoever bids highest actually takes the day. And this is not exceptional to Kirinyaga and Kitui, and therefore to them it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't beat them in their hearts in terms of these allegations. This can only be ballooned at the national level, where media perhaps picks it and runs with it and takes it as if it's a big issue in the grassroots. It doesn't account at all. But again, of course, that mirrors down on our values as a society. Of course, where we are able to adore the so-called perceived thugs or thieves, I think it's a bad precedent that we have already set in our country, and this is not the first presidents that we are setting, because we have seen leaders coming out and getting elected big time, even if they have issues. And you can even take the issue of the ICC. If we were following matters keenly as far as democracy is concerned, we would not have even thought about electing our presidents with matters at the ICC. But we shoved all that and we said, look here, we have a nation to jail together, we have a nation to move together, and these issues do not matter. Let's sort them out according to the law. But as far as public opinion is concerned, we have no voice and we have no say. That's the message.
Kenya is a funny country. If you remember the ouster of Charity Ngilu, the entire country was up in arms, including people in her home constituency who were complaining. If you remember Anne Waiguru's debacle when she had to resign so that her doctor had said she needs to handle lighter duties, such as being governor. The reality of the matter is Kenyans have weird tendencies. And I can guarantee you, it's not even short memory, I can guarantee you 2 years from now, we will all be in opposition. Everyone in the country will be complaining, this has not been done, this is what. Then when it comes to election day, we suddenly change. This is what has always baffled me about our country. We all know what is wrong, we all know how to fix it, and we debate how to fix it for 4 years. In fact, we elect people, and the first act of any parliament is to increase their salaries. Then we complain for 4 years, saying we will never vote for these people again. Then come the 5th year, we do the same thing.
But in this particular case, what do you think endeared, for instance, Waiguru to the people of Kirinyaga?
Exactly, and I'm getting to that because it comes up to the 5th year. Because the reason why the governor that won last time was kicked out was because of corruption and development agenda. They thought that he didn't develop and he didn't do the right thing. But Waiguru won because of a theory called Minji and
Minji euphoria.
Minji and those Minji and then green grams. I forget the other term. That was the issue. So the problem is that every time an election cycle comes about, we trivialize leadership down to emotions and feelings versus the logic we had just 6 months before. That's the issue. But every time we go into an election cycle, the Kenyan is constrained into what is our tribe thinking, what is our tribe standing for, and that trumps any other form of reason. And therefore, when the tribe factor is pulled away on the 2nd month after elections, then we all start complaining, saying, who voted for these people? And yet, democracy dictates that a majority of us did. So it is that issue where for 4 years we are sober-thinking Christians and Kenyans. Then come the 5th year, we become our tribal people. We become Kikuyu, Kamba, Luya, whatever. And then we make a decision from there. And then when we go back to our Christianity, Islam, and other religion, we complain for 4 years.
And Stephen, the incumbents lost in these counties, and particularly Kirinyaga and Kitui County, where we see newcomers that have been linked to corruption actually being given a chance. What message does this send? Are Kenyans serious about making devolution work? What really informed their decision to vote for individuals who have been linked to corruption?
Well, first of all, there's so many things I'd like to respond to what he's saying, but coming to your question,
please feel free to respond first.
There's a lot of talk about tribes and so on. I think we need to come to terms with the fact that we are tribes. We're made up of tribes. And those tribes have political interests, they have economic interests and so on. And so people the world over vote to their interest. Who's going to protect my interests best? So we cannot put that as being, we know it's a factor in our politics, and it will always be a factor in our politics. The problem is tribalism, and tribalism is where you discriminate against others because they're not from your hometown or from your tribe. But coming to corruption, I think it's unfair to say Charity Ngilu or Anne Waiguru, for that matter, is linked to corruption. A linkage means you have a connection to it. We have to accept to the rule of law that if you go to a court of law, or if you're charged in a court of law and you get acquitted, we all have to accept that you got acquitted, whether you got off with a technicality and so on. Now, in the case of Anne Waiguru, she never got charged with any crime or with any corruption. And the people who are charged are in court, and the government also recovered those funds. So we should stop strapping that on her. I think the people of Kirinyaga looked outside of those conversations that we were having. And I think they relied upon the messaging and also the activity we saw her involved in. And therefore, they decided we're going to give her a chance. I watched a clip, a news clip a while back with the Honorable Ndavi, or His Excellency Ndavi, speaking about what he had done for Kirinyaga. And he was of the view, he was very confident that he's going to get re-elected. And he called these people who are running around campaigning as strangers. And he was wrong, because there is an assumption sometimes in leaders that they know what they're doing, and yet they don't put markers out there where people are to find out, am I doing well? What are people seeing? What are they perceiving? So you see grandstanding, and then you see a total loss, as in the case in Kirinyaga. So I think the people in Kirinyaga and in Kitui looked at the leader, they listened to the messaging, and they made a decision. And we have to accept that decision.
Let's zero in now on Nairobi County and Kiambu. What those two counties have in common is that the fact that they've elected two populist politicians. Both have carefully cultivated reputations as caring for the poor and knowing where the shoe pinches for the downtrodden. So Brian, just borrowing from yesterday's swearing-in ceremony here in Nairobi County, that of Governor Mike Sonko, and the President saying that he would also be, of course, involved in ensuring that the residents of Nairobi are treated to better service delivery. What did you read into the President coming in very strongly to say that he would be essentially holding Mike Sonko's hand through this journey?
Absolutely. That was a good gesture. First of all, I do laud it very much. But again, comparing the two candidates, of course, you have mentioned Kiambu and Nairobi. Of course, these guys are known to be crude in terms of the way they do their things. And they have been naturally crucified because of the way that they, articulate issues or, deliver issues within their constituencies. And when you look at their constituent, targets, they normally, target the mashinani fellas, those in the slums, the ghettos, and the low cadres. And they seem to have a good chemistry when it comes to endearing themselves to those people. And, the structure of the society is designed in a way that we have an apex sort of, formation. At the top, we have the very few who are elites. And at the middle, of course, the middle class, and then the bottom line of the bottom level, of course, we have the so-called low cadres, and those are the people that form the bulk of the masses, and those are the people that they normally gel very well with these two leaders. And I think it's a chemistry it is a heart they mastered, in the sense that they were able to understand how their needs, what are their special needs and interests, and they are able to gel with them in a very good way, in the sense that they are able to win their ads. For Kidero, if you compare Sonko and Kidero, for instance, you realize that Kidero was a more of an elite, and he, endeared himself to the elite, and they are very few in numbers, and they don't form a good, significant number when it comes to voting. And therefore,
he was there yesterday, and he actually asked Mike Sonko to continue the work they had started, and indeed to allow for him to be able to support him in areas where he would need to reach out.
As far as I'm concerned, Kidero never did anything. There's no work that he started as a person. That's my opinion. Of course, you look here, Lillian, if you are able to move around Nairobi, the heaps, the garbages, and the menace as far as hawkers just loitering everywhere, I think that gives you a third picture. It leaves a lot of dirty face on Kidero. So as far as he's talking about the good work that he had already started, there was nothing that Kidero did. And sorry to say that, now we have seen Sonko you know, hitting the ground running. We have seen, you know, the heaps of garbages being collected from the core areas of Nairobi, which should be very attractive in terms of the first sight when you come to Nairobi. This used to be the city in the sun, but nowadays it's the city in the garbage. And kudos to Kidero's government, which never actually paid any much attention. They were held ransom by cartels, and they could not breathe even themselves with this fella Mweke. And therefore, I think how I wish Sonko can start this on the steam that he has started, and see how Nairobi now turns out to be. And I want to thank Sonko for coming up with a good professional DG. This guy called Igate. When that man speaks, when you can sense the kind of professionally driven messages that he unleashes, and that gives hope to the people that, yeah, we have been sitting in the garbage, but we are likely to go back to those good old days when Nairobi was so much attractive. And
we're joined in this conversation this morning by Tony Odera, who is a lawyer. Thank you very much for being with us. You're joining us in this conversation when we're talking about the swearing in of the different governors across the country, and we're talking about Mike Sonko in particular, who was sworn in yesterday. Among promises that Sonko made, or pledges that he made during his campaigns, include the lowering of taxes and fees for Nairobi, improved housing, and free medical care for all who live in the city. Tony, how realistic is this, borrowing, of course, from what the outgoing governor, Evans Kidero, started? How realistic is it to pledge all these things during the campaigns? Now it's business. Do you think these things will actually come into actualization?
Thank you very much, Lilian. When you look at the pledge, the governor now, because he's already been sworn in, pledged during his campaign. Now, after assuming office, reality check has to come in, because this is when he will realize that some of the things he pledged vis-a-vis the services people in Nairobi want delivered is going to be totally a different ballgame. Let's take the first issue, that is going to lower rates. Many a times we've had the county workers downing tools because they haven't been paid. The county government, apart from the allocation it gets from the central government, raises revenue through these rates, and a substantial amount at such. So if the rates are lowered, then there has to be an alternative as to where the deficit is going to be drawn from. And it's good to actually lower the rates, because we also have small-scale vendors. And these small-scale vendors, popularly known as hawkers, have been paying quite a lot in terms of being able to get space to do their business. So it would be a welcome idea to do that. If I take on his issue about health for all of us who live in Nairobi, how is that going to work vis-a-vis the medical service providers who are in private business, and also NHIF? Because you realize if he's thinking of doing that through the NHIF forum, then that may require some amendments actually to the laws to make that possible. Or is he going to start his own new medical scheme for people in Nairobi? So there are a lot of questions that have to be tackled when you look at all these ideas before you begin implementing them. And in that process, some may work, some may prove to be a challenge because of all these obstacles, and then it doesn't become a success. And he will go back to the drawing board and then again brief the people of Nairobi and say, okay, I promised this, we can't do this because of that. That's what I hope he's going to do.
And Mark, you know, looking at Mike Sonko, the fact that he's a populist character, his agenda, you know, primarily focusing on the poor, but the fact that you know, the pledges vis-a-vis the service Kenyans want delivered, the delicate balance that lies therein, the fact that Kenya is Nairobi County is cosmopolitan, we have the business community, we have the Wanjiku, we have the Mamamboga. How to balance that?
You know, Sonko is a candidate who's coming into his role as governor the same way Trump came in as president of America. And there's a critical transition that Sonko has to do for the time he's been in politics, Sonko has been an opposition politician. He has been anti-establishment. He was the guy who would punch walls so that people are not moved out of informal settlements. He's the guy who would say the government has failed, and so therefore I have Sonko rescue team that is going to do the work that the government, the county government was supposed to do. So the transition that he needs to do, and he did a very good job with his speech when, as they say in America, he stuck to script and he read it out in proper English and finished it from beginning to end in English. And that should give you an indicator of the weight that he feels going into this particular position. Now, his promises notwithstanding, because obviously those promises are popularist. They're popularist because they pander to his constituency. The lowering of rates, the free healthcare, all of those things, he's playing to his gallery. That is what he's doing. But now the realities of, number one, having to deal with the county assembly to be able to pass the legislature that he needs to implement his agenda. Number two, having to close up his informal Sonko rescue team, his informal approach to handling crises in Nairobi, his handouts. I wonder whether they'll still be queues at the county headquarters with people waiting for him to give 500 shillings. He has to change from Sonko to Governor Sonko. Now that is what is really the question.
And Brian is talking about his working relationship with Polycarp Igathe. What are we likely to see in terms of the working relationship between these two people?
The truth of the matter is, so far they've not had a working relationship. They've had a campaign relationship. They've had a dancing relationship. They dance together very well. However, let us understand, and they take selfies very well. However, let us understand that when they come into power, as they have, the county deputy governor works at the behest of the governor. So it totally depends on whether Sonko is willing to give Igathe an opportunity to bring his CEO capacity into this game. He's on record as saying that, but this is politics. You understand? There is, you see, we need to understand that Sonko runs the risk of Polycarp Igathe outshining him. You understand? So I'm not saying he won't, and neither am I saying he will. I'm saying let's wait and see.
Stephen, your thoughts?
I think, first of all, Kidero did a very good job yesterday. He was benevolent, and of course he accepted the loss and wished Mike Sonko well. I think Mike Sonko is not going to change from being himself. I think he has said that in more than one occasion. And who would he be if he wasn't Mike Sonko? He came, as my colleague here says, he came in on the scene, a noisy guy, jumping on the bonnets of cars, punching walls and so on. But that's what caused people to see this guy. But we have to give him credit. From where he started, he becomes an MP, then a senator, and now governor. Where else is he heading? He's a man to watch. I think he has a lot of work to do in Nairobi. But I think also he and Igathe can take a page from Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. That even with the pressure for them to fight, the two of them made a decision to work together. I'm sure there's people who go and whisper, so-and-so is doing this, or so-and-so is not doing that. But I think the key is to look at the bigger picture. But coming back to Sonko, we have to understand that he has applied strategy. One, getting recognition from the whole nation. Two, getting support from the masses, the forgotten masses of our city and of our country. Sonko is known countrywide. Why? Because we see him being benevolent, doing kind gestures, remembering people who are forgotten, spraying people's homes of bed bugs, etc., etc., things that no one else was looking at. And that was his strategy to get to where he is today. And that strategy is not going to go away. But I think the key thing will be for the two of them to play together, because each has something to offer to the city and to the people of this country at large. And therefore, I don't expect, or rather I'd be very disappointed if Sonko doesn't fully utilize Polycarp, or if Polycarp assumes that he can now take on his governor. We've seen in those places where people are fighting their governors, they have lost. The deputy governors have lost.
Such was the case in Mombasa County with Hazel
Precisely.
and Ali Hassan Joho.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony, let's talk about governors that have been re-elected, and I'm particularly keen on Wycliffe Oparanya of Kakamega, Jackson Mandago of Uasin Gishu, Ali Roba of Mandera, Mwangi Wairia of Muranga. We see Ali Hassan Joho's swearing-in ceremony just about to happen. For those that, and of course, Dr. Alfred Mutua in Machakos County, for those that have been re-elected, does this mean that devolution was actually working in these respective counties? I'm looking at counties such as, for instance, Mandera. I'm looking at counties such as Kakamega. What picture does this paint? The re-election of these characters, of course, a lot of them are veteran politicians, but what served in their favor, their re-election?
If you look at the governors who've been re-elected, and then you all look at they are the first governors to actually implement devolution. And right about the devolution, we've had a lot of mismanagement, we've had a lot of incidents of corruption, and so on and so forth. So that when you find that certain governors, for them to be re-elected, one is there's a cross-general appeal to the residents of that particular county. It may be partly because of the work they have done. They haven't done much, so you can't put it fully into the work they have done. So it may be partly because of the work that they have done, but majorly it's because of the political inclination. If you look at Mombasa County and you look at Kakamega County, these two governors first had direct nomination from the dominant political party in the region. So that then gave them an opportunity of a head start. So that then they are competing with everybody else, but they already have a head start from the party. And since the party is already dominant, then they seem to have a very good head start from the rest. Then they have the county machinery that they are trying to galvanize and use to indicate this is what they have done. But as to whether they have achieved really what they set out to do, for me it is a little bit wanting. There are progress, but then we say maybe the first time they were using it to learn how this is going to work. Try here, try there, fail here, readjust there. But now when they have this second term, this is the opportunity for them to actually deliver beyond reproach. Because they are not going to stand re-elected again. The danger with that is, if they plunder, then they will put the county in serious debt, because unfortunately they will not be there the next time, and we'll have to go through other processes to hold them accountable.
So clean up.
Yes.
So this is their legacy term, as Tony said, Brian, and when we look at persons such as Ali Hassan Joho and Alfred Mutua, they have distinctly stated that they may intend to go for the bigger position come 2022. Alfred Mutua in his acceptance speech actually said that he would be going for the big seat in 2022. Ali Hassan Joho has previously been known to talk about this being their legacy term, and the fact that really they are eyeing a bigger position. Do you see this affecting service delivery at county level? Do you see this affecting their term in office this second time round, now that they're more politically inclined towards perhaps their bigger parties because they're eyeing the big seat?
Thank you, Lilian. I think constitutionally they have all the right to go for the biggest seat on the land. But my concern is actually whether they will leave systems which are working even in their absence. I'm saying this because we seem not to understand that devolution is actually anchored on law. And it is actually the mandate of that governor to ensure that as much as is in the chief in charge of that county, he has to set systems which will work and run in a seamless manner and be able to stand the test of time. And I'm saying this because we seem to glorify these fellas as if they are the ones who are, doing everything, the implementation and all that. There are county staff who are part of the system, whether they exit the scene or not. They are there to see, and their work is to ensure that there is smooth day-to-day running of the county. And therefore, to me, I think that should be an issue, whether, you know, county service delivery will be affected. But I also want to say that some of them, perhaps, especially on the person of Joho, that's a long shot for him, because he has not yet, you know, grown to that stature where perhaps he's going to share.
Why do you say that?
I have my reasons, because first of all, look at the constituent that he commands. The Kosarians, if you put them statistically speaking, they do not have much in terms of numbers. Kenya is polarized in terms of ethnic lines, and we vote across the same, and we can't run away from that. If you look at the number of, you know, votes that those people are able to bring on the table, even for Mutua, it's too little to even warrant that person to sit on a negotiating table. But Mutua, perhaps, you know, is good when it comes to public relations. He might be, you know, putting himself in a situation where perhaps he's looking more attractive when he compares himself to Kalonzo. You know, Kalonzo, some people are seeing him as a candidate who perhaps is, you know, lacking the spine. And Mutua is actually coming now to fill that kind of a gap that Kalonzo is actually depicting. And therefore, because of the 2022 factor, Ruto will be there in the race, and now he is hoggling at the Kamba vote, because of course he's cognizant that the country will not be, you know, very attracted by Kikuyu running mate, because this will be like a, you know, a community-based, you know, leadership, and therefore Ruto will be putting his eyes on the Kamba vote, and the people that is likely to start, you know, courting. One is Kalonzo Musyoka. If Kalonzo becomes a slippery fella or becomes too egoistic, so to speak, then Mutua will offer now that kind of gap. And therefore, we have to look at that scenario very keenly.
I'll come back to you, Mark, on that. Stephen, I'm sure you've listened to Brian's sentiments there. He's totally dismissed Ali Hassan Joho, totally dismissed Alfred Mutua as standing no chance whatsoever in securing this big seat come 2022. Borrowing from what he said, and just away from devolution for a minute, looking at these two characters who have now been voted in as governors of Machakos and Mombasa respectively, and their eye on 2022, their stakes.
I think it's premature for them to start thinking about 2022 and running for president. In the case of Hassan Joho, he has to recover from the perceived disrespect for the presidency. That's a lot of work to be done. Secondly, he has to garner support outside of Mombasa, which is really a long shot. So I don't see Joho making it back to the point of becoming president in 2022. I think he should forget about that and focus on Mombasa. There's a lot of work to be done. There's legacy issues that can help him be remembered greatly in this great country. And so being president should not be a priority for him. Talking about it should also not be a priority for him. He should focus on Mombasa, clean up the city, bring in more businesses, and so on.
Lillian, if I may, I don't know whether my fellow panelists have forgotten that governors have a term limit. Okay? And after being governor in this country, there's no other position for you other than president. So what you're telling me
go for Senate
is to choose, but he will never go to Senate.
Why not?
Why has Anyang' Nyong'o left Senate to go to be a governor? The Senate is considered to be a lesser position than that of a governor. Let's be honest. Now, the reality of the matter, Alfred Mutua, Joho, every governor who's been re-elected for this term understands he's got 5 years or nothing after that. So let me give you a prophecy. This one you can take to any bank that you want. The reality of the matter, in 2022, we will have 10 to 15 candidates on that ballot box. Why? Because Uhuru Kenyatta is definitely not going to be there, and Raila is likely also not to be there. In that space, everyone will say, me with my 1 million cost votes, I'm going to run. Me with my 1 million Luya votes, I'm going to run. Me with my 500,800 Kisii votes, I will run. They will all run and look for an opportunity for a coalition government, where my small party in Coast, my small party in Ukambani, my small party can form a coalition, and in a coalition agreement, I have certain ministries I can
like to see the same narrative play itself all over again.
Exactly, Lillian, I can interject on that if you may allow me. I do not know whether Mark is a good student of history, owing to where we are coming from as a country, where we tested Moi with our, multifaceted approach in terms of so many political parties coming in the fold, and we could not wrestle power from one single individual. When we learned our mistakes, we came together as a nation, and in 2002 we said Kibaki Tosha. All parties, beat down their egos and said, let's support one country. Because and that's the only formula that they know has been proven and tested that it could work. And therefore, Kenyans are still pretty much alive to the fact that that's the only chemistry, that's the only formula they need to put on board to ensure that they wrestle power from any incumbent government. So this disintegration, many political parties to Kenyans are no goes on.
But these political undertones, you remember when Peter Munya came out and said that he would be going for the presidency, could this have also cost him his re-election in Meru County, and not just Peter Munya only? When these individuals express their interest in the bigger position, in the presidency, does this also deviate their attention from their core purpose, which at this point really, for instance, for Governor Alfred Mutua and indeed Hassan Joho, is the people of their respective counties and the service delivery to them?
I want to agree with Mark on this one. And the reason why I'm going to agree with him, it's as simple as this. The guys who have been re-elected and the ones who have been elected, they serve a particular county. And they have done something to get the buy-in from the members of their county. Now, they're also trying to be strategic. They're not saying, now I have abandoned working for my county and I'm focusing on my presidential bid. No, they're trying to be strategic, that they do some work for their county as they also try to look around and prepare for 2022. And the reason why I want to agree with Mark is 2022, we have an open field. So it all depends on who is going for what and who is backing him up. Let's take Governor Joho. It's said that he has following in the coast, but he is one man who can pull crowds from anywhere in this republic. Just like Raila Odinga.
So he has national appeal.
Let me finish. He can't be able to pull crowds. Now, if he says he's going to...
And then again, on the issue of crowds, pulling crowds does not necessarily translate to votes.
At least one, it gives you the public space where people are beginning to talk about you, like Mike Sonko does, like Alfred Mutua does. Then the next thing that is going to depend on, if he is going for that seat, who is going to be the running mate? Because at the same time we are saying Kenya is galvanized along ethnic communities. So who is going to be the running mate? And what is going to be the flaw on the other people who are interested in this seat? For instance, if Alfred Mutua is also interested in this seat in 2022, who is his running mate? Is he going to go for someone who is not known or from a particular region, and then that doesn't work out in his favor? So it becomes a little bit too early to make predictions on 2022. It will be very easy to discuss this when we are in 2021, once we have seen how they have all joined themselves up together and have a clear picture.
We're coming to the top of the hour, so I'll be getting your closing remarks, gentlemen. Mark, I see you burning to say something.
We need to understand the first thing. To put aside the influence of any governor in this cycle would be foolish, because governors, people are beginning to understand, have the capacity to change our destinies at a local level. And that means any governor, look at Alfred Mutua with his Maendeleo Chap-Chap, he had a national appeal. Look at Joho. Joho has been all over campaigning as part of he was almost a principal with other principals as he was running. So let's be clear, how the governors handle the next 5 years will determine their political fortunes after that. And if you're a governor and you only have 5 years left in you, you will say you're running for presidency. That is going to happen whether we like it or not.
Yeah, Lillian, thank you. I think I just want to demystify or allay your fears that as much as these guys will be warming the political space at the presidency, they might affect service delivery at the counties. Of course, we have to appreciate the existence of the county assembly structures, and their sole purpose, one of their roles is actually to ensure that they put checks and the balances on the executive. And Lillian, I must confess that I'm running for a speaker position, and I would want to have a team of county assembly members who are able to live to that billing, to be able to put the excesses in checks as far as Makueni County is concerned. So wish me well, first of all, as I, venture myself in these murky waters of leadership, and at the same time ensure that we put, people first in the heart as far as our mandate is concerned.
And finally, Stephen.
I just think this talk of 2022, people just need to focus on the job that is before them and then campaign later on. The reason I say that is because when you lose focus on what you're doing, you're not going to establish those institutions that will help your county to grow way beyond yourself. I think we saw Ali Hassan Joho come close to taking over ODM, and he was stopped within the party. What I'm talking about is these seats are not open per se. You have to have a relationship with the Kenyan people for at least 20 years. You also have to have a relationship with the people who are going to support you and hold you up to assume that seat. So you just don't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be governor. As far as Munya is concerned, it's doubtful that he can, if he lost his re-election, that he can ascend to the presidency. So people need to forget about that. Let's build the nation and let's go forward, focusing on what we have to do.
Right, gentlemen, we're continuing with our conversation in the next hour. We're taking a very short break now. Remember, today is the 22nd day of August, and President Uhuru Kenyatta is leading the nation in commemorating the 39th anniversary of the passing of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And those are the images we are getting right now. That is the memorial service at St. Stephen's Anglican Church. That's on Jogoo Road. We'll be following those proceedings live. Remember, the swearing in of governors continues, and today Anne Waiguru being sworn in Kirinyaga County. We're also getting those images live. That is Kirinyaga. And we also have the swearing in of Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho slated for today. And of course, we will also be bringing you the proceedings from that part of the country live. We're coming back with more on Citizen Extra in the next hour. Stay with us.